It's challenging, it's fun, you are on the cutting edge, but it is very much always schedule driven, and it's very much always, once you get hired to do a project, you're already behind.
So Greg Hall, Gary Moss, welcome to the Design Hive. Welcome back to the Design Hive, Greg Hall. This is your second appearance.
That's right. Thanks for having me, John.
Sure. The Stantec Buildings podcast, in case you're wondering where you've ended up on this fine day. We're going to talk about designing for advanced manufacturing today. Why don't we start with Greg and then Gary? Why don't you introduce yourselves and kind of tell us what you do at Stantec, what kind of projects you work on, maybe your background, how you got into advanced manufacturing.
I could go on probably for about 20 minutes with all those topics, but just from a quick introduction, Greg Hall. I am an architect. I've been with Stantec close to 20 years, and my role here is the industrial sector leader. So what that means is my purview is anything industrial within the buildings, I touch and lead and help direct for Stantec. So that's just not limited within North America. We're a global company. And within the bubble of industrial, we do everything from logistics, warehouse distribution, high density material handling fulfillment centers, all the way through hazardous bus garages, civic type of projects. And also included in that is manufacturing, which stretches everything from autonomous vehicles all the way through clean room manufacturing to parts and pieces and all that sort of thing. So we're a pretty deep group of people, and we have a lot of colleagues spread throughout North America and worldwide that we lean on, also providing local knowledge when we have projects at all corners of the planet. So that's really our strength. And I guess, how did I get involved in this? You know, I've been an architect and in the industry for a little over 20 years now. I've had my hand in technology and working in a lot of different markets, but really took hold within the industrial space probably about a decade ago with some pivotal projects that I was a part of. And I really enjoy this business because I feel that we're always on the cutting edge of the products that are driving progress in what we're doing. You know, there's a lot of forces that drive our business, such as geopolitics, the scale of the projects. We can just have such a bigger impact because the scale of the project. So that's it in a nutshell. So thank you.
Great, thanks. How about you, Gary? Give us a little bit of your story.
I've been with Page since 2010. I started in this sector in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, working for a company that is very much in the headlines today. And I started as a project architect. I'm an architect. Worked my way up the ladder to project manager, office manager, regional manager, that got more into the marketing and business development. Then when I came to Page, I was asked to get involved with a project in Boise, Idaho, and I became the on-site project manager. Page had already been doing work for companies in Texas and in Korea, asked to kind of get us involved with the client in Arizona and New Mexico. And so I became a senior project manager in the company, and then became sector lead recently for Page. And now with the acquisition, they have carved out a little bit for me, and decided to stick around and make this work. And it's completely exciting. The gamut of my experience, I started off back in the day when we were designing facilities with 6-inch wafers, which is the diameter of the wafers, and now we're all the way to 300. I've seen us do facility modifications that accommodated equipment that went from the 6-inch to the 8-inch, now the 12-inch. In tool install, equipment layout, facility design, facility planning has all been a part of what I've been a part of over these years. And that I started off as a residential architect, and it was just dumb luck that I got asked to come out and help with the project in New Mexico. And over the years, I've asked myself, what makes this fun? Because it's challenging. As Greg was saying, it's challenging, it's fun. You are on the cutting edge, but it is very much always schedule driven. And it's very much always once you get hired to do a project, you're already behind. So just the flat rush of going into a large project, a large equipment installation project that drives how the building works and drives all the utility needs for the building is it's a magnificent effort. It's always going to be fun as long as I keep doing this. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, great to have you. So before we get into talking about Page and Stantec together, let's kind of rewind for a second, explain what we're talking about when we say advanced manufacturing, because I think, you two fellows are deep in the industry. You know what that means. Greg, tell me what that means today, and has that meaning changed? I think you were talking about some other industries or things that maybe are at least tangentially part of advanced manufacturing now, or is it mainly still, I mean, we talked about it before. It was semiconductors, and it was solar panels, and it was the EV batteries were the three big ones we talked about. Is that still true, or is it kind of expanding?
Well, no, I think that's a good baseline of understanding, right? It's the manufacturing of semiconductors, and will include wafers and that sort of thing, EV batteries and solar panels. I think the biggest differentiator between advanced manufacturing and other manufacturing is the clean room component. I hear that a lot, where people will think about some of the automation that's happening in the drone space, or in the aviation manufacturing space, where they're using robotic arms and digital printing. All those things, yes, complete advanced, cutting edge. But when we're talking about advanced manufacturing, it's right in those three categories. And then, of course, there's always the dotted line to the supply manufacturers, the equipment, and that sort of thing. But that's the space. Look who we're talking about.
Yeah, got it, great. Well, let's talk about Stantec and Page, now Stantec. You two are joining from two different firms. Now you're going to be in one firm. What does this mean for our advanced manufacturing design work? What does this allow us to do that we couldn't do before? And maybe, Gary, tell us a little bit about what Page was doing, what sort of projects and how your experience was as a advanced manufacturing designer with Page.
Completely excited when I learned this was going to happen. Page historically had been doing what we call punching up a class. I mean, we were, for the most time, when I started with Page, we were 350 people. And so when the acquisition happened, it was up to 1,450 or 1,500. So we added people and added through acquisitions and hiring. And then the most important part is the engineering component. We always felt pretty strong about our architecture and then eventually structural capabilities to manage these projects. But I've always said in advanced manufacturing and semiconductors especially, engineering, mechanical engineering, process engineering is the lifeblood that will now, and now it's gotten more and more since the acquisition, is going to be the lifeblood of what's going to make us highly competitive in this market with anybody in the world. I'm totally convinced of that. So that brought a little bit more focus maybe on just the clean room side, and we also brought a geographic component to the acquisition that it fills out the United States now, and it fills out a full gamut of services that we can now talk to about providing.
Mm-hmm. I just add to that, Gary. I mean, I don't think we could have drafted up a partnership better than what we have. I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware. Page wasn't on the market, right? Neither of us were on the market. We got together during a partnership on a pursuit a couple years back, and the synergy across the teams was unbelievable. Look who won't acquire, or Page doesn't acquire, where there isn't a cultural alignment, but also they were, their strengths were filling some of the strengths that we needed on our end, and vice versa. So, as Gary mentioned, from a geographic perspective, they were feeling some gaps in resource loading. When some of these projects start coming in, we're going to be certainly really busy in a world contender and all of that.
It was pretty amazing that the pursuit that Greg mentioned. I mean, the way that pursuit came together, the way we constructed that team is a microcosm of exactly how the acquisition is occurring in the advanced manufacturing and industrial. I mean, it was exactly the same fit of what we're doing today. So it's a real bellwether.
Yeah. Great. Well, that sounds like a natural fit. So let me flip it around. What did the advanced manufacturing clients get from Stantec and Page, now Stantec, joining forces to design these facilities that they didn't get before?
Full gamut of resources.
Yep.
Page worked, by the way, for all the top 5 semiconductor companies in the United States. We were working for all of them in some form or fashion. Now we can actually put together a team that we didn't have before. From our perspective, we don't have to go outside.
And just in a concise statement, I think it's scalability.
Yeah.
Right. So we're maintaining that collective knowledge inside and our fully integrated practice, and coupled with we now can go globally. Right now, I think we do that in a much more cohesive manner.
Well, the last time we spoke, both of you were sort of alluding to almost like a wave of advanced manufacturing projects that is on the horizon, but not on the calendar yet, right? So maybe you could just tell us what's holding that back, and when that comes, what needs to happen? Is that basically when the manufacturers pull the trigger and say, okay, the market conditions are right, this makes business sense, we need this thing yesterday? Is that kind of what happens? It just comes suddenly from a bunch of different directions?
Yeah, I think my perspective is these projects aren't small, right? They're mega sized projects. They have a lot of financial gravity to them. So all the little bits and pieces that make that possible, that project possible, need to align so that there's a high level of certainty. So with trade agreements and sourcing of materials and the availability of materials, the availability of land, the water, the power, all these things are sort of shifting. Those folks are making application now. Once they get a higher level of certainty of that, those tax deferrals and that sort of incentive money starts to become available, and they can plan on it from a business perspective and not wait for that money to come. And also, as everyone sort of retools and relearns where the resources are going to be coming from, because there's a lot of shifting globally of where products are coming from. I think all those things really sort of matter. So from an investor perspective, from the reshoring of these things domestically, who's coming, who's going back, and it's becoming to a critical point where waiting any longer isn't much of an option. So these projects are going to start pushing forward here, I would say likely in the next quarter, the beginning of 26.
And we're starting to see signs well, we've had projects put on hold, and we're starting now to see signs of these clients repositioning to get ready. And it's more than one. It's like every one of them that we're working for, they're really starting to ramp up. They're starting to ask us to do this and do that and be prepared. One particular, we're finalizing a contract that, they told us, well, it could be fourth quarter or it could be next year, but we want to get the contract finalized and get a fee finalized. So when the day comes, it's time to go. So to Greg's point, in typical fashion of the business, they'll all come at the same time because it's, and then it'll be a mad scramble like it always is for resources, not just on our side, but resources on the builder side as well as the client side. And a lot of clients have cut staff down to the point where they have to ask firms like us or third-party firms to augment their staffs. There's going to be a real crunch coming on resources, and the stress on the supply chain is going to be immense. So the clients that are ahead of the game by making sure to shore up their supply chain, they're going to be the ones that get first in line to go. So, and they're going to be asking us to help them do that. You're starting to feel it. You're starting to see the water move around in the pot, before it boils. And I think Greg's right. It could be real soon.
Yeah.
And honestly, it really comes down to there's only a couple companies on this planet that could do this type of work. Look who will, it's got to become a first come, first serve sort of basis of who starts pulling the resources and now has that laser focus on their project. I think one of the things we saw in the past 4 to 5 years as this primary boom of advanced manufacturing happened, it got the attention of everybody. We're here to make the project successful for our client, right? There's no linear path. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And I know, John, you're going to ask about the challenges that, these things continue. It's schedule, schedule, schedule. And when it comes from a permitting and all these other logistics, procurement, that's what we're here to solve. So again, that's going to be the biggest thing is like, it's a first come, first serve. Yeah, that's sort of what's involved. And I've been here before and I've seen, certain things like this build up, and this has all the same sort of quality. So we're right there.
Greg, and I am going to ask you about challenges. The thing I was sort of curious about is one of the last times we talked, one of the, and this is, a year or two ago, one of the big things you talked about was the procurement challenge and certain pieces of equipment being just completely unavailable, and your ability, your team's ability to put together other combinations of equipment that could get the job done. What else is out there? What else do you think just getting enough power for these things is probably not the easiest thing to do?
Yeah, no, I think it's the usual suspects, right? So everyone's after one thing is supply demand. So if you're talking about a certain piping material, what are the alternates? When you're talking about wastewater and cleaning of water, there's only a certain number of manufacturers with certain types of membranes that are available. So, when we come to this crossroad of about innovation, there's a lot of different ways to bake a cake. So if we can achieve the same thing using a non-conventional way, but a proven method, we'll do that. And that'll get us to that'll get the finish line faster than everybody that's sort of punching the step 1, 2, 3 that they're used to doing because everyone's doing it. So, part of that is, getting the information early. I think that's capital number one. It helps us size and understand the materials that we need so we can procure them early. And if it's upsizing a little bit of different things, that's fine because that upfront cost is going to pay for itself on the back end. So I think it's always the same kind of questions and challenges, because the manufacturers, the owners of these companies, they're dealing with the same thing themselves. Like we're building a facility where the science and all the technology isn't quite there yet, right? So they're forecasting, they're trying to get to the nanometer chip. They don't have a real true understanding of how to actually manufacture it quite yet. So we're building a box, we're supplying gas, chemicals, air, everything to that, vibration, speed of, humidity, all these different things. We're working at such a small scale, especially with these smaller chips that, they're at a scale now where the circuits are so close, they're worrying about electron tunneling, right? They're at the atomic scale. So when you talk about building something on mass production and what we call the foundry business of actually building outside the laboratory, it's a wild ride. So same challenges. The only thing I can add to that is that we're gonna run into issues. It's not about how, it's not about what you do and if you're gonna run into them, it's how you handle them. And I think we're really well equipped to handle, target the projects for success. I think that's something when we do really well here. Ways that we do that is we make sure we're flexible with our costs and things like that. So everything's not an administrative type of thing. And then from a communication standpoint, it's something that's a real good strength that we have. I can go on and on and on about all the controls we have in place.
Yeah, that's great. Well, explain, I know we talked about this before, but explain how this is not your typical project delivery method, right? This isn't a design build, and I think maybe because we talked about this before, we're skipping over it, but everything sort of happens parallel on these, right? I mean, it's a bunch of parallel processes because the speed to market is kind of the paramount. Obviously the quality of the design is important.
The charts that are developed in some of these projects are very vertical. They're not very horizontal. And, understanding that, to cut to Greg's point, is the risk that we need to communicate to the client of decisions that need to be made early on to hit a schedule that have a risk to them, because maybe that client, and a lot of times it's the case, they haven't baked the product yet. It hasn't been completely vetted out, but we're giving them all the information to make a decision at the time that needs to be made in order to get a permit approved for a certain size facility, to order the right equipment, to size the big heavy pieces of equipment. You have to communicate, like Greg says, to that client. And a lot of times they're moving dirt on these sites before the design is even done and way done. So the design, in my opinion, that the design build method doesn't work very well unless you're working for a national labs or one of the public entities like that. When it's time to start a project in advanced manufacturing, the client has orders they've got to fill, and it's whatever it takes to get that schedule to hit those milestones, and all within the range of and all within the realm of quality, code compliance, that permitting efforts, that, and depending on the AHJ of the particular area, depending on your build partner, and depending on the client, how are you going to work with us to help you get what you want to get done? And sometimes those are the kind of conversations, as Greg was alluding to, it's not always easy.
I would suspect that, now that we're sort of, we'll say, on the second and third rodeo, right? So we've had all these folks sort of reshore and build some of these projects here in the U.S. There's some education that's going to be carried from project to project, and I would suspect that begins to improve. As we get later in these years of these projects being built, I think the realization of that upfront difficult decision about these are the baseline requirements that we need to do here in the United States. So when it comes to discharging water and as Gary mentioned, the permitting and the air permitting and all these sort of things that don't really exist maybe in other places. So they're beginning to see the larger picture of how a little bit more being drawn on the project and on actually how quickly it can go. And I believe there's some effort in sort of reducing or streamlining some of these processes so that these projects can move a little bit faster. It's going to be interesting to see how things change, because it's never a copy smart paste from the previous project. It's whenever you think it's simple, something's going to get you from the side. And I think that's what we do, is we adapt pretty well.
We need to be really cognizant of vetting out projects that come at us, because there's going to be a lot more probably than we can handle, to be honest. And we need to be really careful of which projects that we can staff and can deliver successfully, because there's going to be the top tier clients that are going to get the CHIPS Act money, the ones that are on the stock exchange that you hear all the time, and they're get the big contracts. Then there's that next level that they're going to have a struggle for a lot of reasons.
So there's a bunch of roadblocks out there for maybe some of these manufacturers. That is that kind of what you're saying, that in terms of them getting their funding and their risk taking, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, there's some didn't get CHIPS money, some didn't. How that gets decided, not up to us to determine. And then the other problem is when these big companies have these huge orders for air handlers and piping and electrical panels and things like that, the smaller companies have a harder time getting in line to get their equipment, And the same thing with the builder side. The builders are going to be tapped. So, and I just want to add one more thing, is it's hugely important for us to be teamed with the right builder. Hugely important, because they can, in a lot of ways, they can make us or break us. We're very proactive in talking to our build partners out there and making sure we have the ones that we know will have our back, as we go through this.
We choose our projects based upon the relationship that we have with our clients, including our contractor friends, because there's no sense in jumping to something that's this difficult, right? Because this isn't an easy process. So that's tantamount to what we're chasing and what we decide to take on, because taking on something that we're not equipped to put 100% doesn't help anybody. So yeah, very aware of that.
So I can expect that I won't hear from you guys for about 6 months after we sign off here. So
6 months.
you're gonna be buried. You're gonna be buried in work in the best way possible.
Yeah. It may be longer than 6 months, but yeah, we might disappear for a little bit.
Yeah. Are you on another level here? Are you excited about that? I mean, is that kind of what you live for? Just it sounds like Gary is all about that.
This is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
This is the whole point, to be ready for this. And we're going to be at Simicon West here in a couple of weeks, and I hope this message gets put out there, and I want people to come by and see us, because we're very excited about the future. And I want to tell you, the day that the acquisition was announced, the amount of texts I got from people in different companies, rival companies, contractors, clients, it was awesome. It was just unbelievable. And there might have been some skepticism out there, but I didn't hear it. I've heard nothing but positive, that this has been good for us, and will be good for both companies.
Yeah,
I would say,
yeah, this certainly has been a highlight for me for quite some time. There's not a lot we can talk about in our industry, right? Really about our projects or our clients or anything. And this is something that you could finally step out in the open and say, "Hey, look who we've become, one unit." And yeah, it's what we live for. And it's always nice when you see little bits and pieces of some things that do become public, such as this acquisition and this joining of forces. And then when something pops up on the White House of some project that's coming to fruition and you're deeply involved with that, that's a pretty cool thing. It's like what we're doing matters at a huge scale. And that, for me, and I know Gary and our whole team, is where the big payoffs are.
Yeah, and the timing couldn't be better, right? I mean, everything we're saying here, you guys are poised to do the work that has to be done. So it's a partnership that makes sense with the market, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I know we're solely talking mostly about advanced manufacturing, but also the sort of the dotted lines to all the other technologies that we're involved with in the industrial space, I think our current clients will be interested in, such as our drone capabilities, the robotics, the automation. I mean, we're out right now, we're brokering deals, we're helping our clients find sites, right? So there's all these different things that happen before we even put a shovel in the ground, that we're supporting our clients from the industrial and Stantec and building and Stantec as a whole, which I think is just, it's just not limited to us. We're going to get busy and disappear, but it's the whole integrated practice that gets busy, surrounding this, and it's a huge critical mass for us.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I think we covered a lot of ground here, and I hope to have you two back someday when get a little break. It'd be 2027 maybe, or something like that.
Maybe we'll do a spring session. Maybe going.
We'll have you check in from a work site on the iPhone or something.
There you go.
Give us a real time on the ground report. That would be really cool.